Welcome back to the Metal Exchange. Justin and Chris here with you for another week. It is Powerwolf week here at the Metal Exchange. How are you, my friend?
Demons are a girl's best friend, I was told.
So I've been told. I'm happy to have you back. I know we had recorded the last episode a bit early as you have been away for a bit, but it was well received from what I understand. So I'm very happy about that. And I look forward to catching this show with you on Thursday, along with many, many other people that will be in New York City for this show, which should be a good time. And I thought, kind of what better week to talk about Powerwolf than the week, that we were going to get to see them. But before we get there, two singles I just wanted to mention that were really interesting. Number one, I don't know if you've heard, but Arjen Lucassen has come out with this new band, if you will, that's kind of looking more at like the 70s glam rock scene, or the prog rock glam rock thing that he kind of has always admitted was his like baby and the thing that he always loved the most about I guess growing up with music. But he has released a single with Arjen Lucassen's Supersonic Revolution, and the song is called The Glam Attack. Have you had a chance to check this one out yet? Or I know that you were away, so you may not have had a chance to listen to it.
I saw that it came out, so I downloaded it, the single. I was away, but I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet. But the cover art looks like it came right off of a Yes album from 1978 or whatever.
100%. And I won't spoil it for you, but I'll say this. It's absolutely Arjen, but it also is absolutely what you think it is. It is, but with this like glam element to it. It's really kind of cool. The album I think is due out later this year, if I'm not mistaken. I look forward to that. I don't know if they've actually selected a release date, but it sounds like it definitely has some legs and some promise to it. So that's pretty cool. And another album that has been announced, May 19th is the new Sleep Token album, and the album is called Take Me Back to Eden. They released a single a couple of days ago called Vore. It's Vore. But what's interesting, not only did I think this single was fantastic, but a lot of acquaintances or people that I have kind of just struck up a conversation with are talking about this band. I think they are really on the precipice of blowing up big time. I was shocked. This single, like I said, came out 4 days ago. It has 518,000 views on YouTube in 4 days. That is a lot. And one of the other singles for the album had over 2 million views. So these guys are on the cusp of really just becoming like the next big thing. And some of the people that were mentioning them to me are like, fans of hard rock and metal, but like I'd call them cursory fans, like people that just kind of dabble, dip their toes into the pool, and they know Metallica and maybe they know Iron Maiden, but that's kind of the extent of it. But Sleep Token seems to be on everyone's radar now. I'm curious to see if you like the new one any better than you did the last one, because I know that you didn't like that much at all.
Yeah, it was a little just boring. It's for me, for my ears, and maybe I need to listen to it more. I'll give this one more of a chance. But the singles I've heard so far have been pretty solid. So I'd say that it's a step in the right direction, at least for me. So we'll see.
Nice. So that's some of the new stuff that we've been listening to, or at least that I've been listening to. But I kind of want to get into the Powerwolf stuff because there's a lot of stuff to digest here. And obviously, normally we'll cover an entire album in its entirety. That's, the standard format. But with this, on the one hand, I thought I was woefully ignorant when it came to this band. And I thought, let me get ready for the show. But on the flip side, I kind of knew most of these songs. So I guess I knew more than I thought I did. And I've listened to a lot of their stuff. I just don't particularly love a lot of their stuff. It's kind of one of those things where a new album will come out, I'll check it out, and then I don't listen to it again. And then we kind of wait 2 years or 3 years, a new album comes out, I listen to it, and then I don't listen to it again. Whereas I know other people just, die and rave about this band. I am not that big of a fan, but I'll kind of share my thoughts as we go through it. But to do something a little bit different, I pulled their most recent set list from a show back in December of 2022, and we're really just going to kind of go through the songs on that set list as I think there's a reasonable chance that these are the same songs they play in New York City later this week.
That would be my guess as well. So yeah, I thought that was a good choice as far as, you know, and also at least for you who is admittedly not that big a fan, at least you'd be listening to the songs that you'll likely hear when you see them live. And like I've said before, I think that this is going to be something where experiencing it live is going to produce some like a response in you that you're not going to get from listening to, you know, studio albums.
And it's entirely possible because having listened to this set list a bunch of times, I don't know that my opinion has changed all that much. I think there are certain tracks that are really good. I just think that there's many tracks that are kind of monotonous and formulaic in a number of regards where, well, I mean, we'll get into it in detail, but it's just like pretty good choruses. Some are very good. The verses themselves are not, I don't know, the most accessible or the most memorable in many cases. And then I don't think that the solos are particularly interesting either. It's just very paint by numbers for me in a lot of respects. But at the same time, I could see how this stuff live could be a completely different experience, you know, much to your point.
Yeah, well, a lot of it is visual too. You know, I at one point sat down and watched their Blu-ray. I don't remember the name of it, but I think it was whatever the last live album was. There was the Blu-ray, and I think there was multiple performances included on this. And I watched whatever the main one was, and it was much like a Sabaton show is nowadays. It's very visual, and there's a lot going on, and you have that very church-like kind of theme. You know, it's like werewolves in church. You know, for whatever that's worth. I think you had said it's like Ghost meets Sabaton in a lot of ways. So
yeah,
but with like werewolves and involved, it's interesting.
I just think that when I listen to this, all I hear so much Sabaton and I hear so much Ghost. Not in terms of the visual elements, but just in terms of the music and the sound and the way the songs are constructed in many respects. Those are the two bands that jumped out at me a lot. With some others, I'll mention them later on. But just to kind of paint the backdrop, what's interesting to me is that with the exception of the drummer, Raul Van Helden, this band has been together since 2003 and basically stayed intact, which is not something you say, you know, with a lot of bands, you know, for 20 years in this genre. So kudos to them. Benjamin Buss, or Matthew Greywolf, on lead guitar, David Vogt, otherwise known as Charles Greywolf, on rhythm guitar and bass, Christian Jost Falk Maria Schlegel on keyboards, and Karsten Brill, otherwise known as Attila Dorn, on vocals. That's a mouthful, but yeah, I mean, like I said, this lineup has pretty much been intact since 2003, which is quite remarkable. And in that time, if I'm not mistaken, I think they've released like 9 albums, which is, you know, pretty, you know, 9 albums in 20 years is, you know, pretty much every album tour. And then within 2 years, you're getting another album, which I thought is pretty impressive. And I think they have another one on the way.
Do you have a recollection of the first time you heard them and what you thought at that, you know, that first time, or is it kind of just in the haze of everything else that was coming out? Because I know I found out about them after they had already released several albums. I forgot which album was the first one that really came across my way, but I remember at the time looking at their back catalog and being like, wow, there's several albums that have come out prior to this. I'd have to take a quick look at their actual discography, and then I would be able to tell you.
I can actually, well, I'll just chime in because I do remember just looking back at the different songs on the albums. The first one I heard was in 2011. It was Blood of the Saints. So they had already had 3 albums under their belt. And just to clarify one thing I've said, they have 8 albums to date. Their 9th is coming out this year. But I started becoming aware of them and kind of hearing them for the first time after. Like I said, around 2011, it was their 4th album, Blood of the Saints, and I remember that because there's 1 or 2 songs I think from the set list that they're going to play when we see them, and I specifically remember "Sanctified with Dynamite" as probably the first song that I heard by them.
Yeah, I think for me it was the following album in 2013, Preachers of the Night, because I just
Yeah.
remember Amen and Attack just searing into my brain. And I think you had said that you heard Heyman, and
Oh
I
yeah, Heyman. It's Heyman and Attack. That's Heyman and Attack. There's no question about it. I
see
can't get it
I
out.
hear Ament, like Jeff Ament from Pearl Jam, Ament and Attack.
Oh, there you go. I think we're both wrong, but I'm gonna stick with it. And I'll be honest with you, it's the diction that the singer uses that really just throws me off here. It's kind of funny, and there's other words. Another one being iron, which is just some of the pronunciation here makes me giggle a little bit.
Yeah.
But I'm curious. I'll ask this question. You're a bigger fan of the band than I am. There's no question about it. I am looking forward to the show, but tell me this: listening to these same 18 tracks over and over again, did it change your opinion of the band, or did it really just solidify what you've already thought?
Yeah, pretty much the latter. I'm not a huge fan, but I do like the band a lot, and I in going back and listening to these songs, it made me pretty excited to see them live. It's something that I really didn't think would happen in this country. Like, I figured if I was going to see this band, it would have to have been in Europe. So it's pretty cool, coupled with the number of people that we know that will be there. And just like I said, the whole visual aspect and the whole theatrical aspect of it all. And then we just found out that Seven Kingdoms have been added as an opening act for at least some of the East Coast shows. And they, the last time I saw them live, they were fantastic, and they'll be playing at Prague Power this year as well. But it was cool that they added a little opener and somebody that we actually enjoy and who are quite good live. I think it'll be a nice little warm up, a power metal band opening up for a power metal band to get things started. Just a good, solid choice as far as like finding a US band to kind of start up the festivities.
And I think it was needed because their set list, if you just kind of add, taking into account, of course, that there'll be breaks and gaps in between, but the song running time is only about 75 or 78 minutes. So when you kind of expand,
there's like a whole break in the middle where they administer the Eucharist to everybody in the crowd. So
do I have to howl before I get it, or how does that work exactly?
And you have to scratch the back of your ear like this, and then and then it's I don't know. These are just, I've never seen them live, so these are just things I've heard.
Well, I mean, apparently there are people dressing up like ministers, so it's going to be interesting. It's going to be something. But
I think there are going to be a lot of good photo opportunities.
I'm going to do my best to avoid all of them. But
I don't know did we ever bring up speaking of wolves or Wolverines in this case, did we ever mention that when Wolverine played at Prague Power that there was somebody dressed up as Wolverine, the Marvel character, but wearing the Wolverine band t-shirt? It was probably my favorite metal cosplay of all time.
There were a ton of them on 70K, but that one was fantastic. And no, I don't think we've mentioned it. So we'll shoehorn that in right now just because it was really, really
well, that's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering if we're going to see some like guys dressed as wolves, but like with really big biceps, and they're just power wolves. I mean, we know personally that there's going to be a minister. Shout out to Carl. I think it's going to be, I just think it's going to be a lot of fun. I plan on having a couple adult beverages beforehand and potentially during, and just having a good time. It's been a good bit since I've been to a metal show. I think I was with you the last time I saw one, and I'm ready to take on another one. So,
well, it's fortunately for you, I've actually inserted into my notes here exactly when I'll be getting beer breaks for the songs that I just don't particularly enjoy. So we'll get to those very shortly. They open up the set, or so it seems, with Faster Than the Flame, which is a song from their 2021 album called The Wild. I think it's a good opening track. I think it really is kind of in line with their core sound. So I guess it makes sense that they would open up with one of their newest tracks. it has really like all the trademarks of the Powerwolf sound. It has the organs, the big chorus, etc., and it's one of the faster tunes I think on that they kind of are going to play during the set. But as catchy as the chorus is, and I think it is rather catchy, my issue here with a lot of these tracks again is just the verses. Like the verses themselves that lead up to the big chorus is kind of boring and mundane. What I will say about this particular track, though, is that I thought that the guitar work was some of the better work in the set list. The other knock, though, is they have this the flame section. It just makes me laugh towards the end. I just can't take these guys seriously, but at the same time, if I can go into it with realizing that this is not a Pain of Salvation show, I'll probably have a much better time.
I don't think that they expect you to take it seriously, and I think that's part of the like it looks serious, but I think that they're in on the joke. I don't know if joke is the right word, but like I don't think they're expecting us to like, you know, bow down and start praying. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm going to have a ton of real deep insight, because I agree that I find a lot of the songs to be constructed very similarly.
Yes.
But I think I just enjoy said construction a little bit more than you do, even though
Maybe.
it is, I admit a million times over that it is kind of repetitive, and it's, I don't think it's, I think I had mentioned to you and our mutual friend Nick that like it's not conducive to binging, like listening to one album after the other, because I just don't think, I think you're just going to get completely lost in the fact that it just sounds kind of the same. It's just, but the difference for me is that every time they come out with a new album that's kind of samey, I have gone 2 or 3 years without listening to the band since the last album came out, so I'm ready for my next dose. And it's very similar to how I feel about Sabaton these days, I would say. It's just that this is a little less serious, because Sabaton mostly is based on, or if not entirely based on, historical battles and wars and stuff like this. And this is, you know, clearly mostly, you know, fictional based kind of, you know, like power metal for Twilight fans, I guess.
Wait, mostly? Are you telling me that there are masses that are being held by wolves and that that's actually happening? Because you're saying mostly.
I don't want to. I never want to say that there's definitely not something happening without knowledge.
So you don't like to talk in absolutes, even when it comes to werewolves. Hold. You know.
I'm not a Sith, and only Sith speak in absolutes. So
there you go. I like it. What are your thoughts on this opening track? And again, I guess the analysis will be a little bit lighter than usual, just because I'm not going to repeat myself over and over. I think I'd rather talk about the differences in some of the tracks rather than the sameness of many of them. And then there are certain subtle differences.
I think this is a really solid choice for an opening track. There's kind of a, you know, like an organy kind of intro, which I think will be great for getting on stage. And then just starting something with that's super quick, super fast, and power, like just powerful and catchy. And I think it's a really good choice for first track, if it is in fact the first song they do play. But you know, I think I would say it's what I like this song. I think it's one of my favorites of this selection of songs. I just think that there are a number of songs that sound kind of just like this one. But this is,
I agree.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe there are Powerwolf fans that really are just dig into all these albums, and they start to notice the real smaller differences from song to song. It's just, I've never really dug that deep into it. But then again, at the same time, I put together this playlist of all the songs from their most recent set list, and I pretty much recognized almost all of them. So either I knew them all, or they all just sound so similar that I feel like I knew them. But either way, it was an enjoyable listen. And
well, one of the questions I have for you, and I guess I'll just ask it now because it was kind of a good segue. Do you think there are any glaring omissions?
I don't know that there is. You know what? Let me pull up my list of songs, because again, this is a band that just has a lot of material, like, especially because, you know, like we said, like we found out about this band after they had already released 3 or 4 albums. I don't know that there's anything that I would consider glaring. maybe Blessed and Possessed, but again, there's like several songs that sound a lot like that. So
Right.
I don't know that you're really missing. I don't know. I don't know that there's anything that you're missing too much. The what's important is that Demons Are a Girl's Best Friend are on this list, and that song is not just catchy as hell, but hilarious as well. So
I will give you that. Unfortunately, they don't play it second. They go into Incense and Iron from their 2018 release, The Sacrament of Sin. And I'll tell you this is one of the better tracks. And the reason is it's a little bit different. It's slower, it's anthemic, and it's a lot folkier than a lot of maybe every other song in the set list. So there's elements of like almost like an Eluveitie just in terms of the folkiness to it. But really what I'm hearing here on this particular track is kind of like Within Temptation on steroids. I think that like, and I like it. And although the vocalist doesn't hold a candle to Sharon Den Adele, at the same time, it's really, really interesting. And the guitar solo on this particular track is very, very different from a lot of the other solos. So this is a standout track, if for no other reason than it sounds different than the rest of the set list.
Yeah, this is kind of more of a mid-tempo, kind of almost like a marching kind of beat to it, which I think is good. I don't think you want to have 18 songs that all sound like the first song.
Faster Than a Flame.
Yes,
Faster
thank you. Because there are enough of those songs that are kind of done in that style, so it's good that there are songs that are mid-tempo or even a little bit slower that we'll get to. So, because I think it's important that, it's not just an hour and a half of the same thing.
Well, then talk to me about Cardinal Sin, because they wind up going back kind of deeper into the catalog here with their third song from Preachers of the Night. This was from 2013, probably one of the first tracks you've ever heard from the band. And they don't play many, many old tracks in the set list. This is about as far back as they go with the exception of the last song. But at the same time, you can hear subtle differences in the sound and how it evolved over the years. And I do mean very subtle. But talk to me about Cardinal Sin. What are your thoughts on this one?
I think this song is awesome. It's just fast and brutal, and like it's I love I mean, you hear this in most of the songs, if not all of them, but that kind of almost church organ sound that permeates in the background.
Yeah, it's like a Latin mass at the beginning of the song.
Exactly. This is just one of those ass kicking songs. Like if a pit doesn't open during the first song, this will be where the pit opens, and the preacher, played by Carl, will inevitably get sucked into the vortex of moshing wolves. I can't believe these sentences are even coming out of my mouth, but
I gotta be honest with you, dude, and I'm gonna disagree with one thing. I hear everything you're saying, and I'll even go so far as to say I know why you like it, because I think it actually has a strong Halloween vibe with the double bass drum and everything else that's going on here. But like, other than the fact that I can tell this is like an earlier song in the catalog, I think the song falls a bit flat for me. And I gotta be honest, this might be my first beer run. Maybe. I haven't decided. It's not the worst
see,
song.
I might throw you in the pit for those comments that when this song starts. So.
Dude, I just came from a cruise with a bunch of death metal bands. I am ready for the pit, okay, man? Like I've been doing nothing but being in a pit for the last 3 weeks.
This is probably going to be kind of a gentler pit, I think.
I would imagine so. To me, the best part of the song is really just that main riff that kind of permeates the whole thing. I think it's a very cool riff. The rest of the song I could kind of take it or leave it, as opposed to Amen and Attack, which quite frankly was probably the first song that I heard by the band from their Preachers album, which I would say is like probably the first song I ever heard from them that grabbed me right away, where I was like, this song just kicks ass. And I listened to it a bunch this week, and I still enjoy it. I don't know that I like it as much as I used to, but at the same time, it's so fast and the guitar work is so good. I have to imagine this is one of the better live tunes. And I got to be honest, I thought the vocal performance on this particular track is also one of the better vocal performances by the singer. And other than the fact that I've changed the name of it completely, shout out to Paul Heyman, I think that this is I'm not going to name it my song of the week, but it could have been a song of the week. I love this track. This one I like.
Yeah, I think this is probably Probably the first Powerwolf song I ever at least glommed onto that really struck a chord with me, and I think it still does. I think it's going to be a highlight of the set, even if they change up the set list. I think this one's probably going to be one of the ones that stays. But yeah, this is good stuff. I can't help but picture just a lot of people just having a really good time during this band, because the music is just really fun. It's just fun power metal. But it's different enough with the church organ and just like the themes and everything. It's just like something very different. I've never seen Ghost live, so and based on how much the tickets cost for their next tour, I might not ever see Ghost live. I don't know. Like, the more I listen to Powerwolf and get prepped for the show, the more excited I am for it, because I just think it's going to be just one of those shows where it's just fun. Like you mentioned Halloween before, and that's kind of how I feel when I see Halloween concerts, is that like, I don't care what they're going to play. Like, it's just, I know I'm going to have a good time. I know I'm going to like just bop around and have a good time. And I kind of feel like this is going to be pretty much the same.
And what better way to have a good time than with Dancing with the Dead from Call of the Wild, their next track, right? Like, this is, I can't take anything seriously that they do, but at the same time, this particular track just reminds me so much of Sabaton. Like, to me, this is, when I say Sabaton meets Ghost, this is the Sabaton side of the band. And for me, it's another track where I'm on beer number 2 here. This is a miss for me. And hear me out. It's a decent chorus, but the rest of the song just bores me to tears. And I acknowledge it picks up steam as the song carries on or whatever, but it just doesn't salvage this track for me. And I can understand why it was a single on the last album, but I think the bridge is not so good. And I just think that if you were to rank the 18 songs on the set list, this would be in the bottom 3 for me.
Okay.
You're like, I love it. No,
I think Powerwolf's strength as far as like the part of the song is always the chorus. The choruses are always so catchy, and I don't think that this song is any different. But I agree that like the rest of the song is not as catchy or fun as some of the other tracks. So I'll actually agree with you. But then once the chorus hits, it's just like, it's so good. Like,
yeah, like I said, and I want to be clear, the chorus is pretty good here. But just, I think it's a miss when you compare it to the prior track, which is unquestionably great. And then they go into another track, which, quite frankly, if Dancing with the Dead wasn't my least favorite, Armada Strigoi might be. This is from Blessed and Possessed in 2015. And I actually remember this from when I first heard that album. It's just one of those tracks that I really do remember well. But I don't know, like, it has that galloping beat that we always talk about, and the drums are very good on this track, but nothing else resonates with me on this one, and I think it's my least favorite song in the set list. So you kind of, for me, you got like 2 clunkers in a row after arguably the best track we've heard so far.
I happen to like this song quite a bit more than the last song, honestly. I don't know if it's just because of it's been around longer. And I just have heard it more, but I don't know. I kind of dig this track. I always kind of have. It's a little bit more of, like you said, that mid-tempo gallop. But I think this is a pretty solid tune. I enjoy this one quite a bit. So this is great, because now I know all the songs that I will be asking you to get me a beer during.
Yeah, well, listen, of all shows, this is the one I have no problem going to get the beer and doing the beer run. So,
well, we go to Sleep Token. I'll get you a beer for every track, every song. So.
You would, except you'll probably be sleeping yourself. So I don't know that that's.
I'll be on the stool next to Brian taking a nap.
Yeah. The problem with Sleep Token is if they blow up as much as I think I don't know that I'm going to be able to afford Sleep Token tickets. They may be.
They'll be opening for Ghost for $120 a ticket.
That would actually be a phenomenal tour. I got to be honest with you. I think that would. The problem is I don't know that Ghost would want to be like upstaged by the opener, which I have a feeling Sleep Token is well on their way. But let's talk about Beast of God. Was it Govardhan? I guess that's kind of how I'm going to say it. Govardhan. Call the Wild 2021. This is one of their newer tracks. It's faster, it's catchier, and to me, it's actually one of the highlights in the set. I thought this was probably the best song on their last album. The chorus is awesome. I like the backing vocals. I think that adds a really, really nice touch. And I gotta say, like, this one picks up steam, but in a good way. And more than anything else, I don't know if they're going to be able to pull this off live, but I thought the mix on this particular track is phenomenal. It's just really heavy. It's a song of the week candidate for me. I don't know. I'm not going to choose it, but it easily could have been.
I agree 100% on this one. I looking back on 2021 when this album came out, I remember putting my list together and thinking to myself, like, I don't even know if Powerwolf's Call of the Wild album is going to be on this list. And then I listened to it again and I was like, oh shit, this album was really good. I don't know why the first time I listened to it, if I was just busy or not, whatever, just not in the mood. And then it struck me when I went back to it. I was like, damn, this is really good. And it ended up on my list. I don't know, I'm just remembering off the top of my head, maybe around 13, 14, somewhere in that vicinity. And now that I'm going back, and this is the first time I think I've listened to some of these songs since then, I'm reminded why I enjoyed that album as much as I did. And this song is one of, like you said, it's one of the best ones from that album. And I think it's going to be another one that's going to just come across really well live. And to your point about the mix, I just find that Powerwolf, at least their last handful of albums, are consistently a very sonically pleasing band. I think their production is really well done on I don't know if I want to speak to like the first 2 or 3 albums because I don't really know them nearly as well, but like, I don't know, somewhere, and a lot like Sabaton has as well, they hit a point, maybe God of War, Art of War was that point for them, or maybe even Corollas Rex after that. They're just like, you consistently can look forward to just a very excellent sounding album as far as the mix goes. Completely
agree with you. And I think that's one of the things that do separate both of those bands from many others. It's a very, I think the word you used was sonically pleasing. And I think that's very apt, and I almost wonder if it's the same producer. It's something I'll have to look at. But the next track they go into is the first track that they play from the Sacrament of Sin, their 2018 release. And this release for the band was a very, very well received album. In fact, I think that Metal Hammer actually awarded it Best Album of the Year. So that should tell you something in terms of how popular this album was in 2018. Talk to me about Staskabet and like your thoughts on this track, because it's kind of something else.
Yeah, this is another one that kind of has a bit of that mid-tempo Sabaton kind of vibe to it. Kind of marchy, but also kind of like has a quiet, like almost contemplative kind of section to it. It's not my favorite song on the list of songs. I tend to gravitate obviously towards the more like, high energy, faster tempo type stuff. But it's a decent song. I don't think that there's any songs on this list of songs that I dislike. This just happens to be a bit on the lower end or the bottom end for me. This to me would be an optimal time for a bathroom or beer break for me personally. So, well,
I have it on my list as well. So this might be my third beer of the set, but I have to be honest with you. What's interesting here to me is I like the fact that they kind of slow it down and whatnot. I just have no idea what the song is about. And even though they slow it down, the orchestration is really cool, but the rest of the song is kind of meh. I could take it or leave it. And I'll say one thing about it. I couldn't get one particular section out of my head because it was like a complete ripoff, in my opinion, of March of Mephisto by Camelot. I kept hearing those same, I don't even want to say chords because it's only like a couple of measures, but it sounds just like the song. And I always hear that. And then I get excited to hear that, which is, widely regarded as a top Camelot tune, but this is not that. So another beer, it'll be 3 for the first half of the set. But to be fair, I will race back to get back for Demons Are a Girl's Best Friend. This was from the same album, The Sacrament of Sin. And this is, if the band wasn't on the map prior to this song, I think this song may have put them on the map. It's fantastic. And I'll get to my thoughts in a second, but I know you love this one. I want to hear you first.
Yeah, I mean, this always makes me think of our mutual friend Christina, because I remember when the song came out, she posted on Facebook. She goes, I've never been a big Powerwolf fan, but this song is just fantastic. The lyrics are wonderful. Like, I think it's everything that makes Powerwolf so enjoyable all rolled into one. It's a catchy song. It's got just goofy ass lyrics that are fun but also funny. It's not the fastest of the Powerwolf songs. It's definitely more towards that kind of mid tempo vibe, but I think it's so much catchier than the previous track. I think this is going to be a lot of people just jumping up and down, and again, just having a grand old time. So I look forward to hearing this one live as well.
The melody on this song is just absolutely infectious. I mean, like, infectious. And I think I had said earlier how the band sounds like Ghost. Here, there are actually sounds of ghosts, not the band, but ghosts themselves in the background of this track, which I thought was a really cool touch. This is going to be one of those songs where I have a feeling that the entire place is going to be singing along to the chorus. And if it's true, that will make for a highlight of the show. I'm not going to make it my song of the week, but it's probably my favorite song by the band.
Cool. Yeah. So, I'm pretty excited. I'm kind of listening again as we're talking about these, and it's like the more and more I listen, it's like, holy shit. Like, I was not really, I was looking forward to this concert, but I don't know, I was like super excited about it, and I'm starting to get like super excited about it. I just think this is going to be a lot of fun.
Nice. What's interesting is kind of the way, in my opinion, how they've kind of constructed this set list, because they go into Fire and Forgive, which is the third out of 4 in a row from Sacrament of Sin. And although, like I said, there have been some clunkers for me, I can understand why, as a fan of the band, as you're going through this, I can understand why you're getting excited. This is the first one which kind of starts off like a power ballad, and it's different than the stuff that has come before it in the set list. I'm not going to knock this one. It's not a track that I would say I'm getting a beer for. It's just,
you're going to get a shot.
Was that?
You're going to get a shot.
Right. At this point, now I've moved on to the hard liquor. It doesn't really stand out to me, but I don't hate it. I don't dislike this song. It's just very, it's good. It's not great. What the highlight for me, though, is the instrumental section. I actually think that the instrumental section on this is really good, and it reminds me a lot of Gamma Ray, just in terms of the way that it comes off. What are your thoughts on this one? Because I have to think that anything after Demons is kind of a letdown.
Yeah, this is kind of more along the lines of that kind of signature Powerwolf kind of sound, a lot like the first song was. I just don't think I like it as much as some of the other songs that sound like this, so I'm kind of with you there. It's just it's good. It's just not there's other songs that are in the same style that I think are better.
That's fair. The next track is one of the most interesting on the set list, and I have got there's pluses and minuses here, and it's Where the Wild Wolves Have Gone, not to be confused with Where the Wild Things Are, the book from when we were kids. But I want to ask you this. When you first listen to this track, does anything jump out at you? Because I hear something, and I want to know if it's just me or if it kind of jumps out to you as well. But immediately in that intro, is there another band that says that kind of jumps out at you and says, "Oh, that sounds like blah"?
It sounds very similar to a lot of power ballads that I've heard. I'm curious what you are referring to specifically.
I hear Modern Nightwish, just in terms of the orchestration. Yeah, and again, it could just be me. It's a very good ballad. Starts really cool, needed at this point in the set list. But at the same time, the lyrics just lose me, because normally what I love about some of these ballads from other bands is you can kind of sink your teeth into the lyrics a little bit more. But this one loses me.
Was that a pun, Justin?
What was that? Was completely unintended. Completely unintended, which is sometimes the funniest ones. No, but this song is it's the best and the worst of times, because the song loses me, but the music itself is pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel particularly strong one way or another about this. I think the cell phones will be out, and everyone's going to be waving back and forth, and it's kind of the one, if memory serves on this list, it's kind of like the one ballady kind of tune, and I think it's well placed too, because I think we've just kind of that was kind of a march through a lot of like just heavy, both mid-tempo and fast-tempo songs up to this point. I think everyone might need a little bit of ballad break at this point in time.
But, it's interesting. The one thing the band does, all these songs are like 4 minutes and under. Like, none of these songs are epic, 12-minute numbers. They're in, they're out, and they move on to the next thing. And to their credit, they have to be, right? Like, I can't imagine any of these songs going 30 seconds longer than they actually do, just because they're repetitive as it is in 3.5 minutes. But I guess it's like they know their limitations and they just kind of stick to it.
Right. It's like I've mentioned before. It's like, why was Dragon Force making 7.5-minute power metal songs that were like fast power metal songs? Like, at least Powerwolf has enough sense to be like, get in, get out, and be done with it. And it's like, don't belabor the point. The songs are going to be repetitive anyway, so don't make the individual song repetitive. So I mean, I definitely agree with that. I think that's kind of nice, and it speaks to our very attention span. Attention span dissipating social vibe in this world today. But I mean, you're gonna have to move quick for those beer breaks, because before you know it, the next song's gonna start.
If there's a line, I'm kind of fucked. I'm not gonna lie. But let's talk about "Sainted by the Storm," which is one of their newest singles that's come out. This one. When I say paint by numbers, or when I say formulaic, here we are with like the heels of a new album, and you're not getting very much different here. But it's a really good song, I have to say. Just very much Sabaton on this one.
Oh yeah.
But the difference is, I prefer that war theming to this, and maybe that's why I think Sabaton's a little bit better band for me. Just because there's something about the nature of this which loses me. But I'll say this. This track, unlike others, has more of a jovial feel to it, I think, in many regards. So I actually hear a bit of Freedom Call in spots, and maybe I have them on the brain because of the cruise. But like the way this chorus is constructed, with just almost like a uplifting feel to it, I actually hear some Freedom Call on there. Do you hear that, or is it just me?
Yeah. I mean, I think that if you strip everything down to just those organ sounds. Like you go back to that episode we did on Freedom Call's Stairway to Fairyland, and like you have that same sound. That's the overlay. It's just that everything else is totally different, but that part is kind of that connecting, the connective tissue between the two bands. Other than the fact that they're both German.
Yeah.
But so this is, I think, one of, I believe, 2 new songs that are going to be their next album. I believe is a compilation called Interludium, and I think this is one of the new tracks of 2 or 3. Even that Alice Cooper cover that we talked about last week is not actually going to be on that album. It was released as an individual single, but this is one of the new songs. It was the only one that I saw on the set list, but now that it's been a couple of months, maybe they will add the other new track to the set. I haven't heard it yet. Or no, I have heard it. It just wasn't on this list. I don't know that it was anything that screamed out to me, good or bad. But this song's is good. I agree with you. It's very Sabaton meets Freedom Call. Who would have thought that would ever be a thing? But a solid tune. But the next song, I'm a little bit bigger of a fan of. I'll say that.
Oh, I am too. I'm going to make Army of the Night from Blessed and Possessed my song of the week. I hope you aren't going to do the same thing, because I really don't have a plan B here. This song comes out of the gate melodic and catchy, and the verses are better, simplistic, but better. And it's a monster chorus. I mean, an absolute monster chorus. And I'll go on record. This is going to be the best song they play. The backing vocals are phenomenal. It's so gimmicky when like they're singing the chorus and the instruments drop out and the vocals are just doing the same vocal melodies over the chorus. And I absolutely will give them a pass because the song is awesome. Song of the week. Let's give it a listen, and then I want to hear your thoughts.
That sounds good.
Well, there you have it. That's Army of the Night from their 2015 release, Blessed and Possessed. For my money, one of this and Demons are just heads and shoulders probably above everything with Amen and Attack. I think those are probably my three favorite songs. I want to get your thoughts on this. I have a feeling you like this one.
Yeah, this is actually my song of the week too. It was the song that I was most familiar with, and it still just has that. It's to the quality. It's just everything you said. I think you took all the words right out of my mouth. But I mean, I think this is, if you are going to play a song for somebody who's never heard this band before, this is probably the song you would play. Unfortunately, it probably won't get much better for them if you start them off with this one. But I think that this was, I don't know, this is a really, really strong song. It's actually, I feel like it should have been the last song on the set list. I think that it kind of, at least for me, it kind of trails off a little bit after this. I don't know that there's any songs left. There's 5 more tunes, and I don't know that I like any of them nearly as much as this one. So, yeah, that's kind of my thought. I think this song is just a real banger. This is going to be another one where I think everyone's just going to lose their minds when they play this.
Yeah, it's a good one, and I agree with you. It does get weaker from here. There's a couple of tracks that I'm kind of into, but for the most part, it slows down from here. The next track is another one of their new ones, Blood for Blood. This one is the other folky track, and if I said before there was only one, there's 2, and I misspoke. This is like Elevated Light, or even like an Elven King sound to it, just in terms of the way that they employ the folky elements. It is cheesy, but unlike some of the other stuff, it's almost cringeworthy. Maybe it's better live. I don't know. But the vocals are amiss here. The guitar riff is amiss. I don't like the solo. The best part of the song really is how the last 20 seconds, it kind of picks up steam and goes out. And I don't say that because it's ending, but it does. The last 20 seconds for me are really good, but the first 3 minutes are not. So maybe you'll like it better than I did.
Yeah, I think I did. I wish they had more songs that were folky like this, because I think it's nice to have something a little bit different. And I think that's maybe why this was placed here in the set list. But I think it's also, kind of upbeat. It sounds kind of like a drinking song. I like it. It's not my favorite, but I think it's a good song. I'll look forward to receiving my next beer from you towards the end of this one. Although this one you really need to rush back, because this one just a shade out over 3 minutes. So
yeah, I better hurry.
Maybe we should just stand next to the bar. I mean, that might be the easiest.
Now you're talking. Now I can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. The next track, I don't love it, but it's different, and it's called "Let There Be Night." It's from 2015, back on the Blessed and Possessed album. What can you say? This is a mass for werewolves, down to the Gregorian chants and the church organs. I mean, it's all here on full display and very, very prominent on this track. To me, this song screams Ghost. Like when I say Sabaton meets Ghost, this is the Ghost side of it. This is maybe more than any other, just the way that it screams like that poppy sound that Ghost has, but with the organs and everything else. The problem, though, is it just never picks up enough for my taste. And I feel like the guitar solo is good, but it's subdued. And it's just, they kind of feel like they're holding back on this. And I feel like they would just put their foot on the gas and go for it, but they never do. And I don't know that that's the best way to describe it. But other than the drums, which have a very big feel to it, the rest, it seems like the rest of the band is kind of holding back on this one.
Yeah, this to me is like the one, or I don't know if I'd say the one. It's the most epic of the tracks, and I think that's mostly due to the length. It's like a 7+ minute song in a pile of songs that are mostly under 4 minutes. Sure. And it never really comes out of like third gear or even second gear, because I think it's meant to be kind of a mid-tempo, again, another kind of marching kind of tempo to it. I'm with you. It's not, I don't think it's anything overly special. I have a feeling it'll come across better live than as a studio track. But it's okay. It's probably towards the bottom of my tracks on this list, but also I think it's probably not a bad idea to give people a chance to use the bathroom, get another drink, whatever. It's you won't miss much because it's a 7-minute song. So yeah, it's fine.
It's also the close to their proper set, because the encore are 3 songs and they kind of go back into the back catalog for these. The first 2 of which are on the Blood of the Saints album from 2011. Sanctified with Dynamite. Talk to me about this one. As I said, this was about the time when I started getting into them, or at least becoming aware of them. What do you think of this track?
So this is, again, kind of going back to the very first track. It's got that first minute long of just churchy, organy, kind of like very dramatic, and then it just kicks into like the guitars and the drums, and it's just like goes into like a proper power metal tune. Fast tempo, catchy. This is probably my favorite of the 3 songs in the encore. It's just pretty, for me, like classic old school Powerwolf. I like this song a lot. This is probably my favorite of the last 4 or 5 tracks after after Army of the Night. This one's a good one for me. I like this one quite a bit.
It's definitely a good way to start the encore. What I would say is it's fast, it hits hard, it's very epic sounding for kind of a shorter song, and it's memorable for sure, because I remember when I first heard it, and maybe it's because of the Die Die chants, but it always makes me think of Creeping Death by Metallica, number 1. And number 2, there's this section where the singer starts talking like torn into pieces. It reminds me so much of Camelot's Wings of Despair. So for my money, it's the second time they've completely plagiarized Camelot. I mean, like completely and utterly plagiarized off the band, but it was well done because it was only for like a measure or 2 and then they get out of it. So, but to me, it's the exact same thing as Camelot. Definitely my favorite of the 3, because the next song is We Drink Your Blood. And this one is another one of those Ghost tunes to me, and I'm just a hard pass on this. And I actually prefer Ghost to some of these Powerwolf songs. It's just so generic and underwhelming. I'm almost surprised that they would put it in the encore. The intro is the best part with that really creepy keyboard sound, and then the rest of the song just loses me.
Yeah, this is not one of my favorite mid-tempo Powerwolf tunes that are in this list. And yeah, it's like I said, I was a little underwhelmed by the encore choices. I'm kind of hoping that maybe they, even if they keep the set list the same, maybe change the order up a little bit. Especially the final track, like Werewolves of Armenia, seemed like such an odd choice to finish the set list with.
I agree.
I don't know. Maybe was the last show in Armenia, and that's why they.
A very good question. A very good question. It was in Belgium, so why are they playing this song last? It's the one song they play from Bible of the Beast in 2009. It's the oldest tune in the set, and it's just so unremarkable. First of all, maybe it's because I was listening to the studio version, but it doesn't. This is when the sounds was not as good, and they got much better after this. But mix aside, it's just unremarkable. It's not a good chorus, and like you think you'd want to go out with a bang, and this is not it. And every time the singer starts talking about night, I just thinking about James Hetfield because of the way he enunciates it. Like, it's just such a weird tune to me, and I don't know why they closed with it. Like, there were better choices, and even I, as the casual fan, could have picked out songs that were probably better than this.
The parts where they're like, ooh, I'm like waiting for Roman Reigns to come out.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, this one's a miss for me. I'll say this: I'm very happy that we did this. I'm looking forward to the show much more than I should, given my fandom for the band. But like, I don't know, it'll be a good experience. But I think that of the 18 songs, I think I'm looking forward to 4 or 5 of them. I think that 4 or 5 of them I truly don't care, and the rest is really what's going to make or break the set list for me, just from a musical endeavor.
I think it says something, though, that even though you weren't a big fan of the band, you knew that you needed to go see it because it's
100%.
And I wonder if it's going to be like it's going to be disappointing just because it's the build up for seeing this band for a lot of people has gone on for so long, and only people that have gone to Europe, to big festivals in Europe, probably have had a chance to see them that live here in the States. So I'm hoping that that the band, I think they will, but I'm hoping that they can live up to the expectation, because this is a band that's been around a while. Like you said, there's 7 albums now.
Yeah, eight going, and then the new comp album.
They've been around a long time, and this is going to be their very first show in the U.S. It's going to be really interesting, but it's sold out fast. It's going to be in a new venue that holds, I think, quite a bit of people. So I think it's going to be really interesting, and I have a feeling that they're going to deliver, knowing that it's their first show in the U.S. But it's I think of how many years people have asked, Glenn Harveston, the promoter of Prague Power, to get Powerwolf to come, and Glenn has stated like their stance for the longest time was, we don't really have an interest in playing in the U.S. at this time, and now they're just. I was shocked when it got announced. I was like, oh, I guess they changed their tune. I wonder what the demand for a band like this would be, and then the tickets sold out in like a day or two. Like, it was fast that they added, because there were only 2 shows initially. Wasn't it just this and the New York show and the Montreal show, I believe, were the only 2, and now there's, I believe, at least 5 or 6 at this point.
If I'm not mistaken, and I might be mistaken, I thought it was just New York, and when it sold out so fast, it's possible they added Montreal like the next day or something like that. Not that it wasn't in the works, but I'm not sure that they were announced together. I don't remember. But what I do know is I don't remember how – I'll say it this way. I got a text message from a mutual friend saying Powerwolf is playing. Do you want to go? Like, it just happened like suddenly. And all of a sudden it went from no fanfare to the show is happening and tickets are on sale. And I'm like, yeah, get me a ticket. And I didn't hesitate. So to your point – I knew enough that I had to go see it. What I didn't realize is how fast it was going to sell out. So I'm lucky that I did, because if I would hemmed and hawed, I don't think I'd be going. And I feel like I do need to see it. So I'll certainly recap it after the show, and I'll kind of give you just my broad thoughts, and maybe it'll exceed my expectations. Maybe it'll turn me on to some of this stuff. Yeah,
I think there's a good chance it will exceed your expectations, because it sounds like your expectations aren't that really high to begin with. So, It bodes well in that case, because when your expectations are low, sometimes you get a little magic, or what seems like magic. But I'm very excited. It's kind of coming on fast for me, but I'm starting to get really pumped. I don't think I'm going to listen to the band again until we go to the show. I think I listened to it just enough. I don't want to overkill it. I'm just going in, and we're gonna have a good time, and if nothing else, we're gonna get to see a lot of people that we don't typically see until September rolls around in Atlanta. Which there's the number of people I know that are attending this concert it might be the most I've ever known, not at a non-Prague Power event. So I'm excited about that part. It's always a blast to see the people that you normally only get to see once or twice a year. There's an extra chance to see them. So, and I think this is going to be my last concert until we see Halloween in May. I'm pretty sure. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm definitely excited.
Nice. So much news. I just want to talk about three things in particular because I think each one is interesting and noteworthy on their own, but we're going to talk about all three of them. You and I had talked about death in the archives, and I think I had mentioned, and if I didn't mention it on the podcast, I absolutely was aware of Control Denied, the band, which was Chuck Schuldner's one-off project that he recorded and produced and came out with in 1999. And although Death is not my favorite by any means, although I certainly appreciated the week that we spent listening to them, I always thought Control Denied was phenomenal, and that The Fragile Art of Existence was a underrated album to say the least. And I'm sad to report that Tim Aymar, the singer for Control Denied, passed away at 59 years old earlier this week. This is an album we need to cover because although I know that Death was not your favorite album by any means that we covered, I think this would be a little more palatable to you because it's just a little more melodic in many places. And this singer, Tim Aymar, does such a good job on this album. He fits the music so well. But I'd be remiss not to report the fact that he's died, at such a young age. It's really, really sad. This is, he's probably best known for this work. I know that he was also the singer for Pharaoh as well, but for my money, Control Denied was where it was at.
I actually have this album, but I do not remember it. So,
okay. So in the future,
always sorry to hear when somebody passes away, especially at such a young age. So, my condolences go out to the fans and the family.
No question about that. Some brighter news. This was a complete surprise. Emperor has announced U.S. tour dates for the first time in over 15 years. They're going to be coming in June. They're only doing 5 shows: Chicago, New York, Texas, and 2 shows out west in California. I've got my tickets for New York. I saw them on 70,000 Tons of Metal 3 years ago, and it was one hell of an experience. I'm very much looking forward to seeing them live again. I know that Isan has been playing at Prague Power and whatnot, but to see Emperor on U.S. soil, since I saw them in the middle of the Caribbean last time, will be an absolute treat. And what's interesting about this is that they're playing the King's Theater, which not only is very close to my office, but it's such a beautiful venue from what I understand. And it truly is a theater, but it's even more like over the top than the Beacon Theater is, which you're very familiar with. But it's just a very, very beautiful building. And the thought of seeing these black metal legends in this theater in the middle of Brooklyn is astounding to me. It also holds 3,000 people, which is either a very lofty goal or, this is going to be a very, very profitable night for Emperor because, I mean, that is a very big venue for a band that hasn't released an album in 20 years.
That's a lot of corpse paint.
Yeah, well said. And speaking of corpse paint, I really don't even know how to lead into this, but PowerQuest, who we've talked about many, many times on the show, including a full discography where we talked about all their albums and had interviews with a number of the band members, they've decided to call it quits. And although they had a number of tours and shows and festivals lined up for this year, they're pulling the plug a little bit early. And I really don't have much to say other than I want to hear your thoughts and let you kind of have the floor, if you will, because this is certainly a band that you are, arguably the biggest fan of anyone out there. And I know this has to be very difficult as just a fan that you're not going to get the closure that you otherwise would have liked.
Yeah, I was absolutely, I will use the word devastated. It sucks. I understand the thought process and the mindset. But it's just, as a fan, it's just super disappointing that to not, like you said, have that closure, of seeing this, it was already kind of disappointing as a fan to hear that the band was calling it quits in the first place, but at least they were going to go and do some shows. And like, hell, if they weren't planning on coming to Atlanta for Prague Power, I was going to do everything in my power to go to the UK and see their final show. And they just saved me quite a bit of money because I won't have to do that now. But it just sucks because, like, you know, I think that it would have been a celebration of the band's history, and it would have been just like you said, a way to kind of just feel like you were sending off the band, and the band was sending you off as a fan, and you can kind of feel proud of your time as a fan, and I think I'm still having trouble coming up with the words to how I feel. It's just it sucks, and it's not the first time that this band has pulled the rug out from under me as a fan, for whatever reason. I mean, the band had ended already, and I guess in a way, like, you know, I should be grateful that the band did come back, and I did actually get to see them live at Prague Power, which was just one of the all-time, like, most amazing experiences for me as a music fan. I just was so excited and so looking forward to just, like, kind of being part of this final chapter and getting to meet some of the guys that I hadn't gotten to meet yet, like Brad and Glenn and George. I know that some of the guys were just so excited to come back here, and it just, you know, I'm not gonna speak to any of the, like, internal stuff that's, you know, private amongst the band and whatever. Like, the decision was made. It might not have been everyone's choice or, you know, preference, but you know, at the end of the day, like, you know, it is what it is. Like, Steve's the leader of the band, and you know, if he thinks that this isn't something that's gonna, you know, or he thinks it's something that's gonna cause financial hardship for him after, you know, I'm sure the pandemic wasn't easy for him or anybody. You know, maybe for him that was the right call. I just, as a fan, all I can say is it's highly disappointing, and it sucks. It just sucks that like, basically finding out that your favorite band is ending in that kind of way, just like signing on to Facebook and just seeing a written notice, you know. I kind of, part of me just wishes they would have just said that in the first place rather than announce a bunch of shows and make it seem like there was stuff happening and then nothing ends up happening. So, you know, it's raw for me right now, and I think that I'll get over it, and I'll still always consider them to be like one of my all-time favorite bands, but it's just definitely a very crummy way to just kind of pull the plug and be done. Like, just so, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Just
abruptly.
What's that?
Abruptly.
Yeah, but just like more so than that, just I don't know. I don't know if I have the right word to use, but it stinks. It really does, and yeah, that's all I can say. Power Quest was supposed to play at Prague Power on 4 separate occasions, and they canceled 3 of the 4. So you can imagine, you know, it as an American fan, that it's disappointing, and it's unfortunately it's kind of become a theme, and now that's the theme is kind of how the whole chapter or the whole book is going to come to an end, and I think that kind of stinks, but it is what it is. I mean, I'm not. You know, it's not my money, so I can't, you know, it's not my band, it's not my money. I can only speak as a fan. So, you know, I could probably babble on for another hour, but I don't think I would say anything I haven't already said. So those are my thoughts.
Well said. I appreciate that. We move on here at the Metal Exchange to different things. What are we listening to next week? I feel like you haven't selected an album in a while, so I'm curious to hear what you got in store for us.
Yeah, there's been a couple of, I think I say this every time it's my turn to pick, but there's been a couple of albums that have been kind of rattling around in my head for a while now, and, you know, something will jog my thoughts and I'll switch gears. I'm sure you've, you know, done the same over the years that we've been doing this. but there's a band that we covered really early on that we haven't gone back to yet. And I think one of the reasons why we need to go back to this band is because it's the most listened to episode we've ever done. It was by Manowar when we did
Fighting the World.
Fighting the World. It was like our 5th episode, maybe. It was really early on. It was our 6th episode. So we did this in November of 2020. And for whatever reason, this episode just blew up on YouTube. Like thousands of views. It's mind-boggling to me. So I'm going to see if we can get Magic to strike twice. So we're going with Manowar again, but this time I actually want to listen to The Triumph of Steel, which came out in 1992. The reason I choose this is because it was the second metal record I ever bought after Savage's Handful of Rain. So this one, I have some thoughts on this one. There are some songs on here that are some of my favorite Manowar songs. Some of my favorite songs, honestly. And then there's some songs that are not. So.
I gotta be honest with you. Just my initial thoughts, I remember listening to this so much back in like 1998. I don't know that I've listened to this album in 25 years. I mean, or 20 years. Like, I haven't listened to this album in so long. Because I found like every time I wanted to scratch the Manowar itch, I would go to Kings of Metal or something. So I recognize the fact that I've probably listened to this album a bunch. It's just been a long time. Objectively, probably 20 years. So I look forward to going back, and I wonder if I'm going to look back with the fond memories that I did as someone who grew up on it, or if I'm just going to be totally turned off. I don't know what the answer to that is going to be. So excellent choice. Excellent choice.
Yeah, it's an interesting time for the band, because I think this is kind of where they are coming into the 90s, and after this they kind of become like kind of a part-time, at least as far as like albums go. They kind of became like a part-time band after releasing like albums very quickly through the 80s. I believe there were at one point they released 2 albums in 1 year. I think in 1984 they released Hail to England and Sign of the Hammer. Like they were coming out with stuff fast. They released 4 albums in 3 years to kick off their career, but they've slowed down. They've I think after Triumph of Steel they only have released maybe 3 full-length albums. Maybe 4, but I think it's 3 if you're not counting the re-recordings of some of the older albums.
No, they definitely kind of went on a hiatus at this point, and I'm not 100% sure why, but like they would do the live thing and they would still sell out huge venues, especially overseas. But like this was like, I don't want to say the last of their studio albums. They would release more, but like this was one of the bigger ones, like towards the end of that 80s run and obviously into the 90s.
Yeah, I know that there are people that will say that this was the last, at least good Manowar album. I've also heard people that love Louder Than Hell, which came out in 96, 4 years later, and they'll say that was the last good Manowar album. We'll get into it, but it's just really a very important album, at least in my introduction to metal. And as far as that mixtape goes that started the whole thing, there's a song from this album that was the very first song on that tape. So that was almost like the intro to it all in a lot of ways. So I thought that it was definitely, even though Kings of Metal I think is the obvious choice because we've done Fighting the World. Kings of Metal I think is their probably most well received album, but for me Triumph of Steel just has kind of I think I like Kings of Metal better overall, but I think this album I think for both of us it kind of was an entry point. It was definitely my entry point to Manowar, but it was also one of my entry points to metal altogether. So something I wanted to talk about.
I think it's an excellent choice. It's been almost 3 years since we've done a Manowar album, so it's definitely time. So good choice. We will talk about that. We will talk about the Powerwolf show. We will bring you the latest news and any other tidbits that come across our desks. But I think it is time to sign off. I think it is time to get ready for Powerwolf, and I think it is time to go listen to Achilles, Agony, and Ecstasy in 8 parts. I hope you have a great week, everyone. Give us a like and a follow. Give us 5-star review if you think we deserve it. It helps other people find the show. I can't stress that enough. Some news to come regarding the future of the podcast. All good stuff. We look forward to bringing you that in the coming weeks. So check us out. We will get back to you next week with some Manowar as we go back over 30 years to Triumph of Steel. Take it easy, bud. I will see you in a few days.
Can't wait. It's going to be a blast. Take care, buddy.